What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns welcoming you to another episode of my Top 10 series. And it's such an original idea and concept that you don't see any other Top 10 videos on YouTube. You don't even see YouTube channels that are dedicated to Top 10 videos, do you? I couldn't say that with a straight face. But anyways, you guys have been enjoying my Top 10 series so far. We're going to continue it. As long as you continue watching my content, I continue making it. That's the rules. And last week, I gave you the opportunity to submit your favorite Grand Theft Auto character from Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas, Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories, Grand Theft Auto 4, and yes, Grand Theft Auto 5. And within the deadline, we got 10 submissions, which is good because it's a top 10 video, and that meant I didn't have to cut anybody's submission out of the top 10 list because that's difficult to do. Because you get 11 submissions, you get 12 submissions, and then you have to go in, you have to decide which two you're going to take out back and put down. And it sucks. It's not nice because there's a lot of really good characters in Grand Theft Auto. Now, there were a few submissions post-deadline, and automatically those submissions don't count. So, unfortunately, yes, when it comes to my top 10 videos and my discuss videos, there is a deadline. And I always mention the deadline in the video. Just FYI. So if you did make a submission and you didn't do it in the deadline, it doesn't get included. I'm sorry. But we are doing another Grand Theft Auto Top 10 video next week, and you might just be able to be part of that video. So stay tuned to the end of the video for the topic for next week's Grand Theft Auto Top 10. All right, let's get into it, shall we? We're going to go alphabetically with these Grand Theft Auto characters. I thought it would be easier that way. First off, Jake the Gamer, 1738, submits... My most memorable character from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is Big Smoke because of the drive-thru scene, and that was freaking hilarious. I mean, he kept ordering shit. He wanted this, he wanted that, he wanted that, and it's like everyone else just like ordered like one little thing. And like Big Smoke, I mean, he's kind of got a big appetite. He's kind of hungry. Maybe he hadn't eaten in a few days. I don't know, or maybe he was fasting. He was kind of hungry when he went to the drive scene, but. Anyways, yes, Big Smoke, a.k.a. Melvin Harris, is a high-ranking member of the Grove Street families. He's also, I guess you could say, he was best friends with the leader of the Grove Street families, Sweet Johnson. More on him in a little bit. But the next submission comes from a few of you. Two of you actually submitted regarding CJ. Nexy and Phoenix both picked CJ as their favorite Grand Theft Auto character, also from San Andreas. And two things real quick. I should have mentioned this already. A, I'm trying to keep this as light on spoilers as possible in case you haven't played any of these Grand Theft Auto games, whether it's Grand Theft Auto 3 or San Andreas or Vice City or Grand Theft Auto 4 story. So I'm going to try and keep the spoilers light. And the thumbs I came up with for San Andreas aren't as good as I was hoping for. But I did my best. Just to let you know, I didn't half-ass the San Andreas ones. It's quite the opposite. I had to try and figure out how to make these work. But anyways, yes, CJ, a.k.a. Carl Johnson, he is the main protagonist of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. He was born to Beverly Johnson in the 1960s. He has 3 siblings, including Sweet Johnson. More on him in a little bit. CJ originally moved to Liberty City, but moved back to Los Santos shortly after his mom was killed in a drive-by. CJ is a member of the Grove Street families. And like I said, unfortunately, the San Andreas thumbs that we're going to be using, I would say don't look as good because, unfortunately, the artwork, the wallpaper for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was not as good as some of these other games, for whatever rhyme or reason. But I did the best I could, okay? All right, so the next submission comes from Michael Griffo. My favorite character has been in every 3D and every Grand Theft Auto HD game, but didn't make a physical appearance until Grand Theft Auto 5, and that is Lazlo. Consistently funny, his radio shows are always my go-to when I'm roaming around. I hope he sticks around when Grand Theft Auto 6 is announced, and thank you for your videos. That would help get me through my depression, losing my dad, and also from being in a coma myself. Thank you, GeauxBurns. And I appreciate that, man. It means a lot to me to hear that I'm out here doing what I do, making content and helping some of you guys out, make it through difficult times. As some of you know, I lost my dad back in September to cancer. So, yeah, I feel for you. And I lost my mom when I was a baby, so both my parents are gone now. But it's good that we have each other, doing what we can to lift our spirits and give us a reason to keep on going. And what's really interesting about this is if there would have been only 9 submissions, Lazlo was going to be my favorite character. And I'm not even joking. Michael Griffo, you and me, we got something going on. Not like that, okay? Not like that. You know what I mean. But yes, I love Lazlo. And no, not like that either. Because, see, I originally am from radio. So I have a deep personal, respect for the man. Not just his character he plays in Grand Theft Auto, but real-life Lazlo Jones. And we'll talk about both here. First off, in Grand Theft Auto, Lazlo is a radio TV personality. He has appeared in, like Michael Griffo said, in a lot of the Grand Theft Auto games. First appearance was in Grand Theft Auto 3 on Chatterbox, then in Vice City, then, of course, in San Andreas, as well as Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, which is chronologically supposed to be the very first appearance for Lazlo if you go chronologically. It's like Vice City Stories, then Vice City, then Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, then Liberty City Stories, then Grand Theft Auto 3, then Grand Theft Auto 4, and yes, he has a much larger role in Grand Theft Auto 5, as many of you know. But there is also the real-life Lazlo, who voices the character Lazlo in all these Grand Theft Auto games. Now, Lazlo is actually very important in Rockstar. He is responsible for not only the production that you hear on the fake radio stations, the fake commercials, he's also the one who come up with the brand names and, the idea for which the image and the format of each station is going to be. And I think he has a say in who's going to be the fictional DJ on each of these stations. And for example, Kara, who's now a big-time star, she was originally a model. The first time a lot of people have ever heard of Kara is because of her, DJ work on one of the stations in Grand Theft Auto 5. And I think a lot of that has to do because of Lazlo, because he went out and he selected these people to be the DJs of this station and that station. So, yeah, behind the scenes, Lazlo has a lot of responsibilities and pull when it comes to Grand Theft Auto, especially with the radio stations and the production for the fake commercials. And as a fellow radio guy, Lazlo, you got my respect. And in my opinion, he's hilarious. And that's honestly one of the questions I had whenever Grand Theft Auto 5 was announced. Is Lazlo going to be in Grand Theft Auto 5? And I was so happy when I found out that not only was he going to be in Grand Theft Auto 5, but he actually has a pretty big role in Grand Theft Auto 5. So that was really cool. But anyways, so yes, Lazlo is also one of my favorite Grand Theft Auto characters. And, I realize some people have a love-hate thing with Lazlo. Some people are like me, they love him. Some people are like, oh, not Lazlo again. But hopefully this gives you guys a greater understanding as to the importance of Lazlo Jones in the Grand Theft Auto verse, both 3D and HD. Moving on to the next submission after I was done sucking on Lazlo. He doesn't mind. All right, so next we go to Kevin Smith and Luca. They both submitted for Michael DeSanta. And Kevin says, Michael, he is awesome. The way he is with his kids is funny too. Luca said this about Michael. He's his favorite character. He loves the man and the way he does stuff. He's funny, dangerous, and smart. And yes, Michael DeSanta, a.k.a. Michael Townley, is one of the 3 protagonists of Grand Theft Auto 5. He is a husband to Amanda DeSanta. He is the father of Jimmy and Tracy DeSanta, quote-unquote friends with Trevor, Franklin, Lester, and Dave Norton. And, of course, Michael Townley originally had a criminal history with Trevor Phillips and another friend of theirs, Brad. And it didn't go so well in the opening scene of Grand Theft Auto 5. And ultimately, Michael had to make some changes with his life, which end up later on coming back to bite him on the ass big time. So, yeah, he's a funny guy. He has kind of a drinking problem. His wife sleeps around on him. But in all fairness, he also sleeps around on his wife. His kids, Jimmy and Tracy, each of them have their issues. Tracy wants to be a star no matter what, even if it's from Fame or Shame with Lazlo or doing porn And Jimmy just wants to sit around playing video games all day. And that's Michael DeSanta's life in a nutshell. The next submission for Grand Theft Auto Top 10 characters comes from Young Knight, Nico Bellic, because he has a bit of a tragic story and doesn't act like your usual protagonist. He has a strong moral code, too. And that was one of the big differences about Grand Theft Auto 4 to the rest of the Grand Theft Auto games, even Grand Theft Auto 5, was that there was a lot more humor to Grand Theft Auto 5 and to previous Grand Theft Auto games like 3, Vice City, San Andreas. But at the same time, there was a lot more grit to Grand Theft Auto 4. But you could also say there was a lot of grit to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas as well. But there was a lot more to Grand Theft Auto 4. And Nico Bellic is not your typical Grand Theft Auto character. He is the main protagonist of Grand Theft Auto 4, an immigrant from war-torn Eastern Europe. He was actually a soldier. He did some terrible things. And he's basically come to America for several reasons. For one thing, to start a new life with his cousin. And he's looking for someone. And he's very grounded. He has a sense of humor as well. But he's a very likable and relatable character. And so I can see why, even if Grand Theft Auto 4 was not as well received as some of the other Grand Theft Auto games, Nico Bellic is definitely a fantastic protagonist. And very worthy of being part of this top 10 list. Our next submission comes from Oisin from Ireland. So I wonder who Oisin's going to pick. Not an Irish guy or an Irish-American guy. No, we wouldn't do that. Oh, my bad. Woohoo! Great list, GeauxBurns. Oh, he was talking about last week's Mafia 3 Moments video that we did for the previous top 10 episode. You're probably going to get annoyed by my Irishness, but I'm proud of the fact that some Irish characters are becoming more involved in the video game industry. So I'm going with Tacky McCurry from Grand Theft Auto 4 and Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, obviously, this is the interesting thing about Tacky. Not only is he a character in Grand Theft Auto 4, he also has a role in Grand Theft Auto 5 as well. So Tacky McCurry, a.k.a. Patrick McCurry, is a friend and ally of Nico's in Grand Theft Auto 4. He also makes an appearance in Grand Theft Auto 5. He's basically robbing a shop, and you can either help him or leave him to his fate. If you help him, he becomes someone you can recruit for one of the heists in the main story. So he's not a major character. He's more of a heist character. And you get to find out a little bit more about what Tacky has been up to since the events of Grand Theft Auto 4. But I just wanted to point that in there, that technically he is in 2 Grand Theft Auto games, Grand Theft Auto 4 as well as Grand Theft Auto 5. Tacky is Irish-American. He was born in Liberty City. He has 3 older brothers, as well as 1 younger sister, and he's also a member of the McCurry crime family during the events of Grand Theft Auto 4. Next, we go to Sedan with his GTA Top 10 character. I think my favorite character is Roman Bellic. He's probably the most realistic character in Grand Theft Auto, as he's always getting into trouble and being pushed into bad situations, even when he's trying to do the right thing. He might be annoying sometimes, but he always loved Nico and would have done anything for him. And bowling was a lot of fun. And he's got great taste, big American, titties. I was doing my best Roman there. Along with his amazing choice of clothing. That's debatable. His potential ending actually is really sad. I made the mistake during my playthrough. Okay, we're not gonna read that last part because I'm trying to keep the spoiling light in this video. Now, with the last week's Mafia 3 Moments video, it had to be all about spoilers. But this week, we're trying to keep the spoilers on the DL as much as possible. So yes, Roman Bellic is a cousin and best friend of Nico Bellic, also originally from Eastern Europe. He moved to Liberty City prior to his cousin because he wanted a piece of American dream, just like Sedan said, including the titties. I'm only doing that with his accent, or an attempt with Roman's accent. I would never do that with my accent. No, I'm not that kind of person. All right, so his love interest is Mallory. And a lot of stuff he said I'm going to repeat. Well, a lot of stuff that Sedan said. He's good-hearted, loyal. He has a gambling problem, though, and usually getting himself and Nico into a lot of trouble. And yeah, a lot of people absolutely love Roman Bellic. I think he's a great choice to be in a Grand Theft Auto Top 10 list. Our next selection comes from Matt Sweet Shawn Johnson, CJ's brother in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, And I love him in the mission Reuniting the Families, and it's a great mission, and he's a great character. And once again, I do apologize for the San Andreas thumbs. They look a little different than the other thumbs. I mean, each thumb, like depending on the game, has its own unique look and vibe based on the artwork. But I had to put a little bit more effort into trying to make the San Andreas thumbs for like CJ, Big Smoke, and of course, Sweet look somewhat decent. And hopefully it's acceptable. I just wanted to say that because I do get kind of anal when it comes to trying to make things look right, as well as some uniformity when it comes to these graphics. But anyways, Sweet Johnson, also known as Shawn Johnson, is CJ's older brother. He is also the leader of the Grove Street families and basically the secondary main character in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I mean, he's like right there. Whereas like Roman is like the secondary main character to Nico Bellic in Grand Theft Auto 4. Sweet Johnson is the same thing for CJ, even though obviously completely different character than Roman. But anyways, so that's pretty much the relationship that Sweet Johnson and CJ have. You know, they have a kind of like a animosity towards each other because, you know, from Sweet's point of view, CJ kind of ran away a few years prior to go live in Liberty City. So, yeah, I mean, plus he's an older brother. And even though I never had an older brother because I'm the old brother, you know, I've heard stories about how tough older brothers can be on their younger siblings. So, yeah. Anyways, we are down to the final two selections for our Grand Theft Auto characters top 10 vid. And the next selection goes to Elaine. My favorite will be Tommy Vercetti, because he is the personification of 1980s crime, excess, and of course, he is voiced by Ray Liotta, best known for Goodfellas. And yes, Tommy Vercetti is the main protagonist of Grand Theft Auto Vice City. He was born in Liberty City, a member of the Forelli crime family, and after serving some time in jail, 15 years, Sonny Forelli decides to send Tommy to Vice City in the 80s in order to get a piece of the drug trade, and Vice City is considered by many to be their favorite 3D Grand Theft Auto game. It's really close though. Like some people really love Vice City, others love San Andreas. So it's pretty neck and neck between everyone's fave when it comes to those two games, Vice City or San Andreas in the Grand Theft Auto 3D universe. Two fantastic games, by the way. So with Tommy, that makes what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 characters, which means we have one left. And the final selection goes to CJ Ware. Trevor has to be my favorite Grand Theft Auto character. He, at least to me, is the embodiment of the average Grand Theft Auto player as far as what they do in the game. And has so much depth, it's ridiculous. Clear mental disorders on display. Great commentary on humans and crime. Same with the other 3 playable characters in their own way. So yes, Trevor Phillips makes up the top 10 list. And yeah, he's one of the 3 protagonists of Grand Theft Auto 5. And he is performed by Stephen Ogg, who not only voices him, but also does his likeness. And Stephen Ogg has actually become quite popular now. He was in at least 1 or 2 episodes of Better Call Saul, a couple episodes of Westworld, and recently known for the character Simon in The Walking Dead. And basically, it's like Trevor Phillips is Negan's like right-hand man, and it doesn't get more scarier than that. So Trevor Phillips was born in Canada near the Canadian-U.S. border. He is easily triggered when people make fun of Canadians. So if you're around Trevor, don't start Canadian jokes because it'll get you into a world of hurt if you're lucky. He is a social psychopath, cannibalistic, bisexual, all-around fun guy. He dropped out of the Canadian Royal Air Force, or else he was kicked out of the Royal Air Force because of some issues. He really wanted to be a pilot, and he actually is a pilot in the game, but he wanted to go into the Canadian Royal Air Force, but due to psychological issues, he wasn't allowed that opportunity. And he has definitely mother and father issues. His best friends include Michael DeSanta, as well as Brad. We'll talk about Brad in a moment. Trevor also enjoys terrorizing Ron, Wade, most of Sandy Shores. He hates bikers, specifically the Lost MC, the Aztecas, O'Neill brothers, and has a fear of clowns. Now, Brad is another friend of Trevor's and Michael's. He's more or less a friend of Trevor's, and they were involved in a heist in North Yankton at the beginning of Grand Theft Auto 5. And after the heist, Trevor has allegedly been in contact with Brad, who is supposedly in prison, and they've been pen-palling. And that's all I'm going to say about Brad. You find out more about him in Grand Theft Auto 5 story. Like I said, I didn't want to spoil anything too heavily when it comes to any of these characters or the games that they're in. So there you have it, the top 10 characters in Grand Theft Auto. According to you, the subscribers, Big Smoke, CJ, Lazlo, Michael DeSanta, Nico Bellic, Tacky, Roman Bellic, Sweet Johnson, Tommy Vercetti, and of course, Trevor. You got to have a top 10 list with Trevor or else he'll come after you, and he will find you. Now, before we get to the topic of next week's top 10 video, which is once again going to be centered around Grand Theft Auto, it's only fair because the first three were centered around Grand Theft Auto 3, and maybe the week after we'll move on to something else. But you're going to once again be able to partake in the next top 10 video. More on that in a moment. But first, let me get my soapbox. I'm going to pull it out. I realize it's not Sunday, but I'm going to need it. So this is how this works. Whenever you submit your topic, your selection, your submission for these videos, whether it's discuss our top 10, within the deadline, obviously, I screenshot your submissions, I put them in a file, and I glance over, say, the first sentence to see what your topic is going to be, and then I title that. Okay, so CJ, his was about Trevor. You know, within the first letter, the first word is Trevor. So I assume automatically that he wants to do Trevor. And the reason why I do it that way is because whenever you guys write a paragraph or two paragraphs, which is perfectly fine, I don't mind, I like to have a genuine reaction to what you wrote when I'm recording. So whenever I read through your paragraphs, whether they're Sedan's or somebody else's, that's the first time I've read it completely through, is while I'm recording. I may fuck up a few times and have to edit that out, but I'm still reading it for the first time while I'm recording. Now, what happened was I assumed I had 10 submissions because one of you started off talking about one character which someone else selected, so I lumped you two together. Halfway through your paragraph, you pulled a fast one on me, a 180 if you will, and you went with a completely different character. And I didn't even finish reading it, to be honest. I was mad. I mean, there was salt all over the place. I had salt coming on the fucking desk. I had salt in the keyboard. It's going to take forever to get the salt out of the keyboard. I had salt on the floor. I had to go get a broom, a mop, and to sweep that shit up. I had to edit it out in the video. Yes, I was a little salty because of this. So in the future, guys, please don't do me like that. Okay? Please don't. All right? And I realize part of it's on me, because I should really read through your submissions beforehand. But at the same time, I don't know, I was just trying to do it a certain way in order to get a more genuine, like, first-time reaction from your submissions by just reading over them while I'm recording. But anyways, off the soapbox now. And to the individual in question, I forgive you. Hopefully you don't hit the unsubscribe button on me and we leave it at that. And yes, obviously your character was not included for obvious reasons. Lesson learned. Moving on to next week's Top 10 Discussed video. Yes, it's about future Grand Theft Auto locations or settings or cities. And we've already had these. New York City for Liberty City, Miami for Vice City, Los Santos, LA, Las Venturas for Las Vegas, San Fierro for San Francisco. So you can't pick those. You have to go with a completely new city to the Grand Theft Auto verse, whether it's Seattle, New Orleans, or Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, or a city not even in the United States. That's perfectly fine too, like Toronto, Montreal, Mexico City, maybe one of the islands in the Caribbean, or the UK, or somewhere in Europe, or Dubai, or Moscow, for example. So that's going to be your homework for the next Top 10 video. Okay, so you can pick a city and country of your choice, what you would like the next Grand Theft Auto or a future Grand Theft Auto game to be set in. And you decide where it's going to be. And if you got a cool name for it, a cool fictional city name for this city or that city, feel free to include that. And you can also, if you feel inclined to elaborate a little bit more on your pick, you can throw in a setting as well. Is this in present day? Is it back in the 90s? Is it back in the 80s or the 70s? So there you go. Grand Theft Auto top 10 future locations that you would like to see in the next Grand Theft Auto game. Feel free and submit those below in the comment section via Twitter, Facebook, or email, GeauxBurns@gmail.com. And you have till this coming Monday, which is May 1st. April, man, I hardly knew you, April. But April 1st, Monday, last day for you to submit your top 10 location for a future Grand Theft Auto game. So pick a location, flesh it out a little bit. Give me a cool fictional name for it, a setting if you want it, have a setting, or just give me a reason. Why do you want it to be here? Or why do you want it to be there? Simple as that. So anyways, I look forward to rounding up your selections. And next Friday, we're going to do the Grand Theft Auto top 10 future locations.